Hello, and welcome back to the studio. I'm Dr. Wiggo, and today we're going to be talking about all the new Macs that Apple announced this week. They started on Monday with the new iMacs, then on Tuesday they went on to the Mac Mini, and then Wednesday they went on to the MacBook Pro. I'm going to cover them in that order. So if you're interested in the iMacs, well, that'll be this next chapter coming up very shortly. And then if you want the Mac Mini, that'll be the chapter after that. And if you want the MacBook Pros, that'll be the chapter after that. And the chapter after that will be my analysis and thoughts on the announcements and the new processor and all this stuff. Let's get into it. So they started on Monday by announcing the new iMacs in 6 new colors, plus silver. The names of the colors are the same as the previous iMac, but they're not the same colors. They're more pastel, more muted. I think they're prettier. That's just me. Now, the basis of the new iMacs, of course, is the M4 processor, which we first saw in the iPad. I have one right here. So it's the M4, 10-core CPU, 4 performance cores, 6 efficiency cores, and a 10-core GPU. And it comes with 16 megabytes of memory. They all come with 16 megabytes of memory now. We'll talk more about that later. Or you can upgrade to 24 gig or 32 gigabytes. And they come with a 256 gigabyte SSD, which probably isn't enough, but what are you going to do? They come with a 24-inch 4.5K Retina display, but now there's a $200 nano texture option, so you can get the anti-glare coating that you could get on the MacBooks. They've upgraded the camera to a 12 megapixel center stage camera, so it'll keep you in the frame if you move around, and it'll do desk view, where it'll do a top-down view of what's in front of the iMac and on the desk in front of it. Apple has to convince people to upgrade to these new iMacs, so their big selling point is that these are 6 times faster than the Intel iMacs. So if you have an old Intel iMac, this is 6 times faster, so that might be a reason to upgrade. But if you have one of the M2 iMacs, maybe not. It's faster, but these things aren't cheap. And they come with a USB keyboard with Touch ID and a USB mouse. But what do they cost? It starts at $12.99, but that's not for the full M4. That's for a binned M4 that only has 8-core CPU and an 8-core GPU. The 2 Thunderbolt/USB ports are Thunderbolt 4. To get 24 gigabytes of memory is another $200. To get gigabit Ethernet is another $30. And to get the keyboard with Touch ID, but it's USB, is another $80, which brings us to the next step up, which is $14.99 for the full chip with the 10 cores and the 10 GPU cores, and now 4 Thunderbolt ports, whereas the cheaper version has 2, plus the gigabit Ethernet, plus the Touch ID, and it's $200 if you want the nano texture, which apparently you can't get on the other one. But the gigabit Ethernet plus Touch ID is $110. So that takes the $12.99 to just over $1,300. But the gigabit Ethernet and Touch ID are $110 value. So for your extra $200, $110 of that is covering that. So you're getting the upgrade in the chip for $90. Which seems like a pretty good deal to me because it's a much better chip. So I'm thinking, and we'll talk about this in the analysis later, but I'm thinking this might be the sweet spot for this particular machine. For $16.99, you get an upgrade to a 512 gigabyte SSD, but it also allows you to pay an extra $400 to upgrade to 32 gig of memory. So that one's a little pricey. Like I said, I'm thinking the $14.99 might be the sweet spot here. But wait, there's more. On Tuesday, they announced the new Mac Mini, which is a big change. They went from, like this big down to like 5 by 5. It's just a little bit bigger than the Apple TV, which I know no one has. But if you have one, this is slightly bigger. It comes with the M4 base chip, the 10 cores, 10 GPU cores. On the back, it has an Ethernet port, an HDMI port, and 3 Thunderbolt ports. But what kind of Thunderbolt it is depends on what processor you get. And on the front, there are 2 USB-C ports and an audio jack, so you can plug in headphones and stuff. They have this new cooling system design that lets them put all this power into this little 5x5 box. Apple doesn't like big power bricks, so there's no power brick. The power adapter is in the actual box, and so that generates heat, but they have this new cooling system which takes care of that. Who are they pushing the new Mac Mini to? The people with the Intel-based Mac Minis, because this one is 13 times faster than the fastest Intel-based Mac Mini. So this is a huge upgrade. All for $599, $600, which gets you 16 gigs of memory, because they all have 16 gigs of memory now, 256 gigabytes hard drive. For $100, you can upgrade to 10 gigabit Ethernet, and for another $200, you can upgrade to 24 gigabits of memory. But for $400, you can upgrade to 32 gigabytes of memory. But $599, we'll come back and talk about that. Since they had already announced the M4 chip, they were just reviewing it on Monday and again here on Tuesday. But on Tuesday, they announced the M4 Pro, the world's fastest CPU core. Don't know what that means, but it's Apple. This is a 14 core, 10 performance cores, 4 efficiency cores chip with a 20 core GPU. And it has a 75% memory bandwidth increase over the M3 Pro. So memory will be faster, everything will be faster. The neural engine is 3 times as fast as it was in the M1 Pro. This chip will make your Mac Mini 20 times faster than the fastest Intel-based Mac Mini. Oh, and the 3 Thunderbolt ports? Well, with the M4 Pro, those become Thunderbolt 5 ports capable of 120 gigabits per second transfer speeds with the one device that supports it right now, but there'll be more. Once Apple starts shipping things with Thunderbolt 5, everybody's going to start making Thunderbolt 5 devices. Apple's very proud. This is their first carbon neutral Mac, and there is a 10 gigabyte Ethernet option for another $100. The base price for the M4 Pro Mac Mini is $1399. Big jump over $599. And that gets you a binned M4 Pro, which only has 12 CPU cores and 16 GPU cores, 24 gigabytes of memory, and a 512 gigabyte SSD. If you want to update to the full chip with all the cores, that'll be another $200. You can also upgrade to 48 gigabytes of memory for $400 and 64 gigabytes for $600. That seems like a lot. I already mentioned the $100 for 10 gigabit Ethernet. But it's a pretty amazing little machine. On Wednesday, they announced the MacBook Pro. The big change here externally is there's now a Thunderbolt port on the right-hand side. So you have 2 on the left, and now you have 1 on the right in between the HDMI and Ethernet port. The MacBook Pro starts with the M4 Pro 14-core, 10P, 4E, and 20-core GPU. But then they announced the new processor, the M4 Max, which is a 16-core processor, 12 performance, 4 efficiency, and a 40-core GPU, which is 1.2 times faster than the M3 Max and 2.2 times faster than the M2 Max. Now, I have an M3 Max. I'm not going to be upgrading for 20% for $5,000. The Media Engine has 2 ProRes accelerators, and the Neural Engine in this guy is 3 times faster than the M1 Max. And if you want to know why they keep talking about the Neural Engine, because that's what works Apple Intelligence. So 3 times faster Neural Engine means 3 times faster Apple Intelligence, or so. It comes with the XDR display, which in the last round, they upgraded from 500 nits to 600 nits for SDR. But these new ones, it's 1,000 nits in SDR and still 1,600 nits peak in HDR. But even with all this new power and all this new stuff, 24-hour battery life. Not full day, full 24-hour day. That's amazing. It has the same 12-megapixel center stage camera that was in the iMacs and the 6-speaker sound that was carried over. Oh, and then they just kind of dropped in. Oh, and by the way, we're upgrading the starting memory in MacBook Airs to 16 gigabytes. So Apple no longer sells a Macintosh of any kind with less than 16 gigabytes of memory. Finally! Now, what does this all cost? For $1599, you can get the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the full M4, 10 CPU cores, 10 GPU cores, with 16 gigabytes, which you can upgrade to 32 gigabytes for $200, and 512 gigabyte hard drive, and Thunderbolt 4. If you go to $19.99 for another $400, you can get the 14-inch with the M4 Pro, but it's the bin version with 12 CPU cores, 16 GPU cores, and it comes in 24 gigabytes and is only upgradable to 48 gigabytes for $400 and a 512 gigabyte SSD, but Thunderbolt 5. Now all your little ports are Thunderbolt 5. You have to go to $23.99 to get the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the full M4 Pro with the 14 CPU cores and 20 GPU cores and 24 gig of memory, upgradable to 48 gig for $400, and a 1 terabyte SSD. It's $400 more, but you get the better processor and you get the upgrade from 512 to 1 terabyte, so maybe it's worth it. But if you want to move up to the M4 Max, you have to pay $3,200, $31.99, to get the 14-inch. But that's a bin chip again. 14 CPU cores, 32 GPU cores, 36 gigabytes of memory, non-upgradable. It's 36, that's it. That's your only choice. And a 1 terabyte hard drive. But for another $300, you can upgrade to the full M4 Max chip with the 16 cores and the 40-core GPU. But they're also going to throw in another $200 up because when you go to the M4 Max non-bin, you get automatically upgraded to 48 gigabytes of memory, and that's another $200. So going to that step is $500, and you don't have any option about that memory. It's 48 gig. But you can add memory, 64 gig for $200 or 128 gig for $1,000. So what do I think about all this? Well, first, let me just say I commend Apple. I think this was a great way to release this because they spent the first day talking about the iMacs and concentrating only on the M4 chip, which we'd seen before in the iPad. But then when they get to Tuesday and they go to the Mac Mini, well, now they introduced the M4 Pro chip and get to spend some time talking about that and pushing that up and generating more buzz. And then on the third day, on Wednesday, they introduced the M4 Max chip and they get all that stuff. So they upgraded the CPUs every day. And I think it was very effective. It also made for more buzz on Twitter and X and all the other things because now it's 3 announcements. The other YouTube creators all loved it because they all got to make 3 videos. I'm only making the one because I'm a once-a-weeker. But the new iMacs are a buy if you have an Intel iMac because 6 times faster and prettier colors and all sorts of other stuff. And again, it's only $12.99 for the lowest level. But again, I think on the iMac, the $14.99 version is the winner. It's got the full 10-core CPU, 10-core GPU. It upgrades your Thunderbolt 4 ports to 4, and it throws in the Gigabit Ethernet and the Touch ID keyboard, which is a $110 value. So basically, you're getting the updated chip for just under $100. So I think that's the winner in the iMac category. What about the Mac Mini? The base model is a steal. This is the most CPU per dollar that Apple has ever sold. This thing has a lot of power and it's $600. Now you get Thunderbolt 4 instead of Thunderbolt 5. You know, they want you to get the M4 Pro version. But that's another $800. It's more than double the price. Now you get a faster CPU, you get 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports. Oh, and your chip is binned. You have the lesser chip. So to get to the full one, that's another $200. That takes you up to $15.99, which is $1,000 more than the entry-level Mac Mini. So for here, I would say the entry-level Mac Mini is the steal of a deal. If you're not a power user, if you don't need all that extra headroom, if you're running an old Mac Mini, or especially an Intel Mac Mini, and it's just getting a little slow, well, for $600, you can get a 7 times faster machine. $600. And if you already have a Mac Mini, just plug all your stuff in and you're good to go. Now, the MacBook Pro. Well, the winner here is that all of them have that extra Thunderbolt port. Now, what kind of Thunderbolt port it is may depend on which one you get. Some of them are 4s, some of them are 5s. So for $15.99, you get the full M4 chip in 512, but your Thunderbolt 4. For $19.99, you get the Bend M4 Pro chip, and then you have to go to $23.99 to get the full M4 Pro chip with the 14 CPU cores and 20 GPU cores. And then, of course, $31.99 to get to the Bend M4 Max, and then another $300, actually $500 because they upgrade your memory too. So you're up to $36.99. So on the MacBook Pro, I don't know. I don't really have a recommendation here. It kind of depends on what you need to do with it. For $15.99, you get the full M4 chip, but you're going to probably have to do some upgrades. But if you get to $19.99 with your upgrades, well, then maybe you should switch to the M4 Pro chip, because then you get the Thunderbolt 5. Or for $23.99, you can get the full M4 Pro chip. And then for $31.99, which is a big jump, but it's for that M4 Max, the Bend one, and then another $500 to $36.99 for the full M4 Max. I don't know what to tell you. This one is, you're kind of on your own. There's not a screaming value looking at me here. I'm thinking, my advice, buy a Mini. If you're not a power user, get the entry-level Mac Mini. $600. That's an amazing value. I mean, from Apple, that's the cost of the memory upgrade to 64 gigabytes on the bigger Mac Mini. That's $600 just for the memory. This is $600 for the whole machine. Yes, you only have 16 gigabytes of memory, not 64, but unless you're a power user, 16 megabytes, again, finally, Apple is shipping machines that have decent levels of memory, even at the entry level. They have to for Apple Intelligence, because it needs more memory. So that's why they're doing it. I would say that the real winner out of these announcements is the Mac Mini entry level. The $600 little supercomputer. Because compared to the old Mac Minis, it is a supercomputer, the Intel based. And even compared to the M2 Mac Mini, it's a bit of an improvement. So I don't see how you can go wrong. And if you're going iMac, get the middle one, the $14.99 one that gets you the full processor and all that stuff. And if you're getting a MacBook Pro, well, you're kind of on your own. Think about what you use. Look at your memory usage. Do you really need more than 32 gigabytes? Because the 64 gets expensive and the 128 is outrageously expensive. That's $1,000. You know if you need that kind of memory. And if you don't know, you don't need it. Don't pay the money. That was a lot. And again, I want to say I think Apple did this great. By having the 3 events, they got to introduce the processors one at a time. I'll tell you what, they almost convinced me I wanted an iMac on the first day, but then I saw the Mac Mini. I went, oh no, now I want a Mac Mini. They didn't sell me on the MacBook Pros. I already have an M3 Max, and it's fantastic. And for 20% maximum improvement, I'm not spending another $5,000. But I am kind of thinking about a Mac Mini because they're so adorable. They're little teeny tiny computers for $600 that's more powerful than most of the computers that I've ever owned. That's what I had for today. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Bye-bye. I'm going to start playing with my AirPod 2s and iPhone and work on those videos. Thanks for staying to the end. Bye-bye.